2023. It is 9:21 a.m. This session is set to go until 12:15 today. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder. Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell is excused for today. So we'll start our agenda with the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting of May 23rd, 2023. Feels weird.
Almost June. Amazing.
Okay, so for our meeting of May 23rd, we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 agenda. There will be an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update. County manager.
I don't have any specific updates for you this afternoon, Madam Chair.
Okay. Now consent items, there's 3 items. Items 3A and 3B are for district and superior court, the resolution setting the salaries for the district and superior court commissioners.
Maybe I can cover both items at the same time. You reviewed this item last week. It's a matter of perspective to the benefit of the public. The state law requires the Washington Citizens Commission salaries for elected officials. Establish the schedule for the judicial branches for both the judges of district court and superior court. And they have provided a determination. There's going to be a salary and the adjustments for superior and district court judges beginning July 1st, 2023, and another adjustment on June 30th, 2025. For the new salaries for the superior court judges will be beginning July 1st, 2023 to have $217,391, and beginning on June 30th, 2024 will be $228,261, and that has been part of the budget already. For the district court judges, the new salary in July 1st, 2023 will be $206,988, and beginning June 30th, 2024, their salary will be $217,337. It has been a past practice by the board to bring the salary of the superior of the court commissioners, and those are hired judges, both by district court as well as superior court, to bring those salaries in alignment with about 85 percentile of the judges, both in superior court and district court. To that effect, the request is for you to consider passing a resolution to adjust the superior court commissioner salaries to 85% of the superior court judges, and their salary will be, if you approve, in July 1st, 2023, $184,783.25, and for in 2024, $194,021.85. And for the district court commissioners will be in 2023, $175,100, and in 2024, $184,336. This has an impact on the budget, obviously, and this was included on the deliberations of your budget amendment that is coming up for your final approval on June 6th, and you already made those determinations as to how you'd like to proceed with the impacts on the budget. Any questions?
Questions on these 2 items? Commissioner Edwards?
Is the increase for 23 and 24, or you had said earlier 23 and 25?
Yeah, beginning July 1st, 2023, and beginning on July 1st, 2024.
So it's 24, not 25.
No.
And is it common that we would do it for 2 years because that's the cycle or something?
Yeah, it has been a past practice by the board, county commissioners, to align those 2 salaries on the biennial budgets. Yeah. Similar to the judges.
Okay, thanks.
Questions, Commissioner Spencer?
I was gonna ask Assistant County Manager Gilder, is this a system that Kitsap uses too, if you recall? Commissioners having a 85% to the salary commission for the Superior Court or something like that?
No, they fall into the structure of the class and comp system specifically. So there isn't a percentage of the salary commission's determination. for
Might
that
be
one.
85%, but that would be,
It might be, but it was configured into the overall count.
I think it's higher. I think this is the last time when Superior Court came with the request. Kitsap was one of the considerations for commissioners were higher than that 85%.
but the judges, I knew this a couple years ago, but I've forgotten, is the salary commission for the state judges, I mean, do they take markets into consideration, or is everybody the same across the state for Superior
For all
Court?
the judges across the state, and they take, it's a market analysis.
But I mean, Seattle makes the same as
Yeah.
Thurston, makes the same as Whitman.
That is my understanding, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge issue of contention with some of the judges, that it's the same across the board. Okay,
Particularly in King County, because obviously cost of living is higher.
Well, they could just lower the smaller counties.
but our judges here in Thurston County do hear more of the civil cases than any other county. So they have to be like really specialized into that specific areas.
Right, and we do get a court impact fees as a
Not
result of
enough.
that. Not enough, you're right, not enough.
Okay. Sarah, anything you'd like to add on these two? Okay. Item C, appointment to the Historic Commission, and this is for Troy Wilson.
Yeah, the board discussed last week this appointment, and at that point, Commissioner Mensah, Commissioner Edwards would like to move forward with this appointment. I think at that point, Commissioner Mejia, you excused yourself from that part of the conversation, so they wanted to bring this back today for the appointment again for Mr. Troy Wilson to the Historic Commission, and that will be a 4-year term. They will have an expiration date of May 31st, 2027.
Thank you. It's fine with me. Any questions on this? Comments?
There was some talk about did you have a concern about this?
No, she was
Oh,
not
she
part of
just
the
wasn't
conversation.
Oh, okay, that's
I
right,
was-
yeah,
So
So
to step
okay,
out
I
for a
stick it
second.
on
Yeah.
there
good,
in case you had some input.
thank you.
Department items. First item 4A from the auditor's office is approval of the voucher list for the week of May 1st.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, for your consideration is approving the budget list for the week of May 1st, 2023 for a combined amount of $2,240,369.02. The reason as to why this is in your department, as a department item, is we continue to have small expenditures related to the tenant improvements here at the atrium.
Thank you. Any questions on item 4A?
No,
Commissioner
ma'am, no,
Edwards?
ma'am.
Commissioner Mensah?
So if I may say, you now you start seeing a little bit of a combination. You know, some of those will be in your consent, and some will continue to be on your department item. Eventually, we'll
Eventually, we're gonna get caught up.
into consent. So we're getting to that point.
Okay, central services, item 5A, lease amendment extension between Thurston County Facilities and B&W Investment.
I think you've reviewed this item on a couple of occasions, Commissioners, and this is extending the lease of a facility located on 2500 Monument Road Southwest, that's in Tumwater. Facilities has been leasing this space And we need to have an extension on the lease, in this case is to through March 31st, 2024, to give us enough time to make a transition for facilities group to move into one of the buildings in the Mudman complex that we purchased a couple of years ago. And this is an extension of the current lease, and it will last until March 31st, 2024 again. And Richard King is here to answer any questions.
Richard, anything you'd like to add?
County manager, described it perfectly.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Questions, Commissioner Menson?
Thank you, Richard. Sorry.
So I thought I remembered, maybe I'm just combining things in my head, but is this an additional extension?
No, and when you remember we brought this item maybe over a month and a half ago.
Okay.
And
then
we weren't ready because we're still negotiating with the property owner the terms of the extension of the lease.
Okay.
That's what you remember
Okay,
perhaps.
yeah, I was just like, okay,
Finally, we got to the point of agreeing on the terms of the extension of the lease.
okay. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Public Health and Social Services, item 6A, approve a one-time. Do you want to cover item 6A
Yeah.
and 6B
Yes,
together?
thank you, Madam. So those are new items for you today, Commissioners. And there's a little bit of a sense of urgency. That's why I bring those items before you. And this is related to the foundational public health. And as you may be tracking, Commissioners, that we're going to make just about every single effort to utilize all the foundational public health funding that is due by the end of June 30th, 2023. And that is the last year's allocation. The Department of Public Health has gone through the process in making sure that we do not leave any money on the table. And we align some of the needs that we have and also in alignment to the foundational public health funding. So the item 6A that you have before you is to go ahead and provide furniture to the facilities in Lily Road. This facility has been provided furniture. The initial furniture was 20 years ago, and during the pandemic, it was pretty obvious that that has been used, and it needs to be updated. So this is item number 6A to authorize the department to purchase furniture for the amount of just about $106,159.87 from Crane's Total Office, which we do have a contract with this vendor. The next item is similar to the previous one, but this is to upgrade all the audio visual equipment in all the conference rooms and public health and social services. And again, it was pretty evident during the response of the pandemic, but we didn't have enough of that audio video. So this is an opportunity to bring it up to standards and meet the needs of the department. And item 6B is for the amount of $127,179.65. And that will be with DESCO. And we do have also an standing contract with DESCO as they provide the services here, even at the atrium. David?
You covered it well. Vicky can speak to the details if you guys have interest there, but we are trying to take advantage of a really great fund source from the state. Upgrading our infrastructure is a core piece to this puzzle for FPHS. So that's all for us.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Edwards, on item 6A and 6B?
No questions, but I do have one question on, did we use the same funding source when we upgraded our water lab over in that facility?
Portions of that will be.
Okay, no questions, thank you.
Commissioner Munster, questions? I reviewed this agenda item yesterday with County Manager Chavez, David, so you're lucky he answered a lot of my questions.
I appreciate the county manager's help on that.
No, but if it's something we need, I know that conference room equipment is usually something that we hear a lot from different offices and departments, and so if this is something that's gonna be needed, you know,
And thank you for the comment, Madam Chair. I hope we don't come across that just because we have available funding, we're just gonna purchase something that we do not need. There has been an assessment of the needs in terms of the furniture and the audiovisual, and that's really just comes to the point of having the opportunity to replace those. So there is a need behind all these proposals.
moving on, thank you. Or Vicky, anything you wanted to add? Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Mejia. One of the things that I would add is the quote that you have in front of you from claims office that was part of the agenda item does not cover, it's not a comprehensive list of everything that we do need to order. That is office furniture and some miscellaneous items only. We do need to add our general public reception area to that.
Hey Vicky, your audio is not coming through clearly.
It's coming in a little bit garbled.
Can you hear me better now?
A little bit better.
Not really.
Hey, this is why we need to upgrade our audio visual.
There you go.
There you go, that much better. How about if you translate, David?
Okay, David, I sent you a text. Can you read that text?
Yeah, I'll do my best here. So what we're looking for is, yeah, we'll need some additional funds. So that amount we had was an estimate. We've got a more updated estimate for that amount. Probably add another, looks like maybe another $30,000 to the total amount of what we need. Just as we've assessed additional needs on the infrastructure front.
Is this
And
for-
that should cover our general reception area furniture that we still need to add to that quote.
That makes sense. Yep.
Well, that might be an issue because the board is authorizing a certain amount of dollars and it cannot just give you the latitude of expending more. So if there is a new number that we need to add it for this afternoon, I will encourage you to update that number.
Yeah, I'll talk to Vicky and get back to you, Ramira, about that number.
Well, if we're up against the time element, I'd like to make sure that gets accomplished.
Yeah, this afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll revise provide a new number for this afternoon.
I'm wondering, usually we give the 10%, and
Well,
these two, it wasn't included. I'm not sure the third.
We'll include also the 10% just to cover. So let's go ahead and revise that motion. And Jamie is here to help you.
Okay, Public Works. Thank you, David. Thank you, Vicky. Item 7A, resolution and call for sealed bids for Yelm Rainier to 90 Trail restroom replacement, CP number 51094.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's an opportunity for the board to really invest in infrastructure supporting the trail system. On this particular location and the Yelm Tenano Trail, which is the Koski Park and Rainier, you currently have dated and somewhat dilapidated restrooms. And the proposal for you is to authorize the department to secure the bids to have a contractor to replace those bathrooms. It will be a 4-stall commercial grade vandal resistant restrooms. And that's really what we need to go through this process. And we have seen some of the effectiveness of those bathrooms. They is low maintenance and as well as a little more preventive on vandalism. And also those bathrooms will be accessible ADA standards, which the current bathrooms doesn't have those. Kevin?
Thank you, Canon Manager. I would just like to add that currently this restroom is the existing restroom out there is in major disrepair. It is in need of a new restroom, so this is a priority for us. So thank you.
I'm sorry, and the funding is coming from the park impact fees, combination with the real estate excise tax too, which is included in the budget for 2023.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Metzer? So I'm wondering what the timeline is on this restroom replacement.
You think it will be done this year, Kevin?
So for these pre-manufactured restrooms, we're looking at about 10 to 12 months out of getting it on site. So our assumption is towards the end of next year in fall. We like to typically do these restrooms after the summer, just because we see high use at the parks during these times.
So you're saying this will be completed by the end of 2024?
Correct.
That sounds a long, long time.
This has been a long, long process, I might add. This is about the 4th year that we're going into this, just a bureaucratic example for the public.
Well, Kevin, also, I mean, in terms of the supply chain issues with Romtech and other facilities, is that an issue in terms of being able to get the equipment on site?
So that is what our situation is. That's what's putting us into that 10 to 12 month range, because we're still seeing lag in these supplies, issues from throughout the period of COVID. We had this with our Burfoot Park restroom. That's why we went with on-site built structures, and we're currently seeing it with our Kennydale restroom replacement, seeing construction coming up here in the next couple months.
Thank you.
No questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7B, resolution appointing the county road engineer.
As states, Commissioner, state law is very particular and very clear as to when you have to take a legislative action to appoint the county road engineer. So this particular action for this afternoon is for you to consider appointing on a permanent basis Matt Anselman as the county road engineer for Thurston County. This afternoon, the director, public works director, Jennifer Walker, will introduce the item. And if I may, probably give the floor to Matt Anselman to say a few words. And I believe his family is going to be joining him this afternoon as he achieves this great pinnacle of his career. Maybe I may suggest after the meeting, regular meeting, if you have an opportunity to have a picture with him and his family. If you decide to approve this resolution, by the way, then that will be a good opportunity for Matt, his family, to be part of this great occasion. So I'm particularly very pleased to see this come before you. I have known Matt since 2014, and since I came to work for Thurston County. But since, I have been nothing but impressed of the way he conducts himself, his knowledge of engineering, and he, I believe, is going to do nothing but great work, not just for the county, but for the residents of Thurston County. Are you listening, Matt?
Yeah, I'm turning red over here, County Manager. I'm actually on here for another item, but thank you for the kind words.
Any questions or comments?
Nope, ready to do it. Get her done.
Okay, we'll see
Thank
you
you.
and your family this afternoon, Matt.
All right, look forward to it.
Okay, Sheriff. We have a couple of items. The first item, 8A, contract for a full-time school resource officer in the Rochester School District during the 2023 through 2024 and 2024 through 2025 and 2025 through 2026 school years.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We reviewed this item last week, and I believe this is a new request from the Rochester School District to provide resource officers. And this is a $95,000 per year. The Rochester School District will pay the Sheriff's Office to provide the services for the school years as you stated, Madam Chair, 2023, 24, 24, 25, 25, and 26. And this, the 95,000 is actually per year. And I believe this, the deputies who will be part of this is going to be on an overtime basis. Is that correct? Or this just part of the normal duty? Okay. And if you can, the under sheriff is here to clarify any questions you may have. And Heidi Thompson. I always forget your titles. You're Chief Financial.
Deputy Chief.
Deputy. Okay.
So it's not overtime,
Okay.
it's regular salary.
Regular salary. Okay. Great. Thank you.
County Manager, you said that this is new, but it's not new. We've had resource officer in Rochester for.
Yeah.
But is it used to be part-time or always been full-time for the Rochester?
Rochester's always been full-time.
Okay, so I'm confused.
It's been part-time.
That's what I remember Rainier. Okay, that's the next item. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me straight.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Munson? Okay, item 8B, contract for school resource officer in the Rainier School District.
So this is for Rainier School District. And again, this is the part-time, right? Just moved part-time to full-time.
Go ahead. No,
Okay.
you got it.
So, recently, I think, about a year ago, the decision where Rainier wants a full-time, school resource officer. So we have a contract for $40,000 from, Rainier School District. And then we also have another contract from the city of
The
Rainier.
city.
And so we're taking a portion of that and combining it with the 40,000 to make a full-time officer in the schools at Rainier.
Okay.
Oh, so that's the item C that we're,
Correct.
yep, and so we're trying to, item C, we're trying to, get it so that it ends the same time period that the school resource officer contract.
It aligns on the timing.
Yep, so they're ending at the same time. Okay. And then does item C need to have an amount if we're extending the contract, of how much we're extending it?
I don't believe the amount is changing. It's just the timing of the extension of the contract itself. So the amount is not changing.
So we're still gonna be, they're gonna be doing the 40,000,
I think it allows the flexibility to move funds around.
okay.
Commissioner Mensah.
Any,
Well, I was just curious if Rainier indicated why they want to increase it. Are they having more violent incidents? Do they not have, all-day coverage and now they just like to extend the hours? Or
I think it's just they want the extended hours. There isn't anything, going on in Rainier that's any more than any other place right now, but they would just like to have something full-time,
kind of like what Rochester has?
like, the rest of the county, like Lacey does.
No
questions?
questions.
No questions, okay. No questions for me, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
So we'll review our standing items, and we have 3 public hearings this afternoon. I know item B and C are
Yeah.
kind of together, but not. But we'll go with item A, which is public hearing, consider an ordinance implementing the code clarifications and corrections amendment.
Yeah, you reviewed this item, commissioners, back in April 12, 2023, where you received some perspective from staff. The specific code amendments include miscellaneous clerical errors, clarification on expansion of non-conforming non-residential uses and structures, and update sign or postings procedures. The Planning Commission reviewed this item in a couple of work sessions, February 1st, 2023 and February 15, 2023. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 15, 2023. That resulted in the Planning Commission to recommend the board on 8-0. One was absent, to recommend approval as presented. And this is the last step in the process. For your consideration this afternoon, you have 2 actions. One is to close the public hearing, and depending on the public testimony that you may receive for your considerations to approve an ordinance amending those chapters of the code. If there is a need to have a follow-up briefing as a result of the public testimony this afternoon, we will head and schedule one for you to have the opportunity to discuss the comments you may receive this afternoon. Andrew is here to provide additional perspective on this. Oh, no, are you here for this one or the next one?
This one, I just wanted to point out, it was mentioned in the AIS, but we did receive one public comment, and that was related to cannabis. And it was similar to the request that you saw with the docket proposal back in March with changes related to marijuana to cannabis. So that's the only comment we've received on this project.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, no questions for me, thank you. Item B and C. Public hearing for a minor amendment to 6-year capital improvement program for the 2023 through 2028. And then item C is the public hearing to consider a resolution amending the 2023 through 2028 transportation improvement program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Those two items are related. And this is the result of the legislative session of 2023, where it was a budget proviso under the capital budget to build 3 runabouts on the 507, what we call is the bypass on the Yelm area. Within that context, there's 3 runabouts. They were part of this process, which a total cost of the 3 run was $21 million. The budget proviso incorporates some requirements to the Department of Transportation to work with the local jurisdictions. So the first roundabout, the one that touches base on the 507 and 702 is going to be managed by Pierce County. That's within Pierce County jurisdiction. The next roundabout that is located within the Yelm area, that is going to be managed by the city of Yelm. And this third roundabout, which is on the 507 at Vale Road, is going to be managed by Thurston County. This has been a good collaborative effort as to how we need to build those improvements on a timely manner. It does going to create a little bit of pressure on Public Works, but I know that Public Works will be up for the challenge. As a result of the $21 million, just about $7 million will be allocated for the 507 and Vale Road roundabout. So there's a couple of steps that we need to take before we can start working on those 2 projects. One is you need to give budget authority, and this item is part of your budget amendment that you might be considering approving on June 6th. The next step in the process requirements, we need to add this item on the capital facilities plan. And this is the first public hearing that you have this afternoon. Within the amendments of the capital facilities plan, we need to go work with the Planning Commission, make sure they also take this item as part of their business. So I believe they held a public hearing, and they also recommended approval, I believe. The public hearing was May 17th, is that correct, Andrew? And
That's correct.
as a result of that public hearing, the Planning Commission did have a letter in your packet recommending approval of this budget amendment to add this project into the CIP. And that was a unanimous decision on the Planning Commission members that were present, 7-0. The next public hearing is related to the Transportation Improvement Program. And the Transportation Improvement Program also requires that any amendments by adding any projects to the TIP, I may have to remind you, it has to be a unanimous decision of the Board of Planning Commissioners approving that amendment on the TIP. The CIP does not have that requirement, just the TIP. And that's the last public hearing we have this afternoon. Both we request for you to consider closing the public hearing. The formal action will come before you at a later date. There is a couple of nuances within the next steps. We'll bring this, the approval of the TIP amendment to align with the budget amendment they may consider on June 6th. The CIP amendment may require a little bit of additional public comment period, and we'll bring that back hopefully after your summer recess on the first meeting. Any questions?
Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thanks.
Questions? Commissioner Munster?
That was a long explanation. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. That will conclude our agenda for Tuesday, May 23rd. And then for next week, our meeting of May 30th, 2023, that meeting is canceled. We will not be having a meeting or agenda setting
No.
that Tuesday.
Just technically, it's not canceled. We didn't schedule it at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that was some of the decisions.
It has-
So it really
There
is.
hasn't been a meeting
Yeah.
to cancel.
So it just for the public.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the decision your board made. One of the
Beginning of the year.
first meeting of the year.
Okay. Next, proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions. Jamie.
For proclamations, I have no updates. For the boards and commissions, the standing certificate application for the Agriculture Advisory Committee has been included for your review. I did receive another application for the Historic Commission that has been included as well. That commission doesn't meet again until June 14th, so we haven't had a chance to review that application yet. The Agricultural Advisory Committee did get back to me with an appointment recommendation. They unanimously voted to recommend the applicant for the newly created ex officio student seat under the caveat that the clerk of the board, myself, or another commissioner's office staff member attends the meetings because they're concerned about his outside commitments and his job preventing him from attending the meetings regularly. They noted that he was unable to make it to their last meeting to participate due to having to work and are concerned that his outside commitments will prevent him from regularly attending future meetings. I reached out to the staff contact on Friday requesting to find out how much notice the applicant was given for their request to attend their last meeting. Followed up on that yesterday and this morning. And the feedback that the chair provided staff was that he would prefer to address it directly with the board today. So I anticipate he may be here this afternoon. I'm not sure. But that's the recommendation as of right now, is to appoint so long as myself or another staff member will be attending meetings for his appointment. Just a reminder as well that Doug Carmen did resign from the Planning Commission last week. I have updated the table of vacancies in your packet, and I haven't received any applications yet to replace him. So outside of any questions, that's all I have.
May I?
Go ahead.
With all due respect to the Agriculture Advisory Committee, I don't know why this simple appointment has become an issue and a concern of discussion. I believe there is a youth appointment, a student appointment. This individual has submitted an application, and I believe this student is willing to serve in the Agricultural Advisory Committee. So I don't know how we can come to the conclusion that perhaps he's not going to be able to meet the demands of this appointment even before he's appointed to. So I'm a little bit of a loss on how this has gone around. My recommendation for you is to consider approval with no caveats, because I don't think with all respect, any board and commission can put a caveat on the appointment the Board of County Commissioners may exercise. So
I don't even understand the caveat.
yeah, I don't
What
get
does
it.
our staff have to do with him attending or not attending?
Yeah, I don't get it.
He didn't further explain. I can only assume that it would be to report back to the board whether or not this person was attending regularly, which they are able to do on their
Chair
own.
can send us an email.
Yeah, they
It
can
takes
update.
about
They also
5 seconds.
They also have the option too, that if there are non-participating members that just don't show up for meetings, we do have a process to have those members removed from any board or commission. So if he isn't available in the future, they could request his removal, especially if they had another applicant that could replace him.
And
At this time, though, he is the only student applicant we have.
I guess I'm struggling on not just the Agriculture Advisory Committee, but any committee to put restrictions on board's appointments and conditions on board's appointments. That is not appropriate. And I hope they're listening.
Question?
No questions. I'm good. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to put him up for appointment. He's been waiting for quite some time, actually.
Yeah. And then Charles Gloyd is an appointment for the Historic Commission.
Yeah, they have not yet had a chance to review this application. It just came in last week and they don't meet again until the 14th.
Okay,
And
so,
I did let him know that they would be meeting and reviewing that, and I'd circle back with him at that time.
okay, so we'll wait until we hear back from the Historic Commission on that, but they have several open seats.
I fully anticipate they'll recommend appointment.
Okay, perfect. PIO check-in.
Morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I have no specific updates.
Thank you. Questions for Megan?
No questions. Thank you.
No.
Legislative update.
I have been working with Deborah Mengia, and we have a schedule for June 7th, I believe, for her to come in the afternoon to give you an overview of the past legislative agenda, some of the lessons learned, and perhaps start talking as to what the board would like to see in the next year's agenda. So it will be a good opportunity for her to provide her perspective on some of the legislative items in the legislative agenda, and see how some of the potential new items in the next year's, which is going to be a short session anyway. So
What is that date for that meeting?
I believe it's June 7th.
When are we gonna have a discussion about our wish list? Or
So
budget?
we are going to organize a meeting with Robin when we have the board the opportunity to outline everything that you'd like to see from your own perspectives on the upcoming biennial budget. And at that point, as we have exercised that process in the past, we incorporate every single idea that you like to implement. We put a little bit of dollars and cents, and that will be part of your discussion on the biennial budget discussion. But that is coming up.
I've been plotting just to commissioners.
Do you know about money I don't know about?
No. Just trying to lay out a strong case is basically what I've been trying to work early, so that way, when it comes through.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, and I think each commissioner will have your own initiatives.
Yeah.
You would like to implement this coming year. And again, as we have exercised in past budget processes, each commissioner will have the opportunity to convince the other two why your initiatives are important. It's all about balancing the expenditures and revenues.
Commissioner Edwards?
On the legislative issue, have you mentioned at all about the hospital maybe partnering with them?
Yes, and in fact, I had a email exchange with Darren Goss, and we introduced our legislative liaison, so
Okay,
the connection has already been made.
thank you.
Perfect. Okay. When are we, questions, Commissioner Munson, I apologize. On the legislative update.
No, if I'm supposed to understand what you just said, I don't. Or is that just your own question?
Well, at our Board of Health, but maybe you weren't here
Yeah,
for
you were
that.
not here when, during the conversation with Darren Goss and Brian Calico, as part of the Board of Health presentation on
I think that was Will.
Bill. Well, thank you.
Bill Calicut and Bill Creek.
Yeah. So the similar presentation that you were part of
I was on the Zoom.
Okay.
I mean,
The conversation was, is there anything that we can do in the next year's legislative agenda that we can support some of their initiatives? Mainly on the Medicaid rates, there was at that point as I reported last week, I believe the Medicaid rates have been increased, and I'm still waiting as to what that increase have been and what areas have been increased.
Yeah, and the same questions we asked at the BHASO meeting, and they also weren't 100% sure, and we're gonna get back to us,
Right.
so still waiting for the
Yeah,
bids.
so, but I think it was, I understand the task for me was to connect the legislative liaisons that we have, the hospital and the county, to see how we can probably work on a joint agenda for next year. Mainly on the Board
Rather
of
than
Health,
do it all ourselves, you know.
maybe on the Board of Health legislative agenda. So,
Oh, right, okay, I do remember that.
so we haven't had a Board of Health specific
Okay.
legislative agenda, but it may be something that we may consider, and how we can probably blend the two, the county's legislative agenda, Board of Health legislative agenda. I think it's just a good opportunity to have those discussions.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, there's like Wasalfo has an agenda, but there may be some local issue
Right.
that we want to kind of
Right.
elevate. Okay.
And maybe also support a larger strategy, a larger request.
The ability to amplify.
Right.
When are we gonna start working on our legislative agenda or any priority for next year? Are we gonna try to put the 1% back on, or what are we?
So that will be the, June 7th will be the kickoff meeting of that process.
Okay.
So we'll start getting some of your feedback, open conversation, then we'll start bringing some specific language. And, on your executive session today, that may be part of that as well.
Okay. Briefings, public hearings pending, there's not any. Do we want to take a break, or do we want to do the Chehalis River Basin Flood Authority? Break?
I don't know, the flood authority is pretty straightforward.
Okay, we have a break.
Okay,
Okay,
we'll
yeah.
take a break. We are back from break. It is 10:25 and we left off with commissioner items. And the first one is the Chehalis River Basin Flood Authority interlocal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a review of the interlocal agreement the county has along many other jurisdictions. That goes back in 2007 as a result of the significant flood damage on the southwestern Washington, particularly related to the Chehalis Basin, which that led to declare an emergency December 8th, 2007 as a major disaster in Grace Harbor, Kitsap, Lewis, Mason, Pacific, and Thurston counties. That was the launching pad to draft an interlocal agreement among all the jurisdictions and any others. Since there has been a couple of amendments to add specific cities. So it has come to the point of renewing this commitment to continue to work within nearby jurisdictions to see how we can probably partner on the Chehalis River Basin Flood Authority. There is the voting, I believe Commissioner Minster serves on that board, and the voting is one per jurisdiction who signs on this agreement. There is not a financial commitment to the county on this agreement. If the county needs to contribute to this effort, which I believe we have in the past, it would require a different interlocal agreement. So this agreement before you does not bind the county financially. It's just the overall umbrella as to how we need to cooperate within the region of the Chehalis River Basin. And so that's what I have. I don't know if Commissioner Minster would like to add any particular items related to this, but
I mean, we get supported through, like, there's been an annual allocation from the legislature to the Office of Chehalis Basin for the Chehalis Basin strategy, which includes the Chehalis Basin Board. That board has 3 members that are appointed by this group, the Flood Authority. There's also an executive committee of the Flood Authority that Thurston County has a seat on. So I serve with the commissioners from Grays Harbor and Lewis as a 3-person executive committee for the Flood Authority. We take up issues of, emergency issues of funding and policy. So generally we're funded, and you'll see a clause in there about kind of a placeholder in case a certain project needs a local funding component. I mean, they kind of carve out the room, but in the time I've been on the board, it hasn't been that issue. And we have projects sometimes on the list, not as many as Grays Harbor and Lewis because we don't have the same flood risk, but we do have a significant portion of our county in the Chehalis Basin. It's about, I don't know if it's a third, it's about 2/3 of my district. So it'll be almost all of District 4, the new District 4 that we are creating. So, so maybe it's more like a 1/5 of our county. So I think it's good to stay involved, be at the table, because that process is winding to a conclusion in a way. So
maybe I can highlight the participating jurisdictions. I failed to do that.
Sure.
Is Lewis County, the city of Centralia, city of Chehalis, city of Napa Vine, the town of PL, Grays Harbor County, city of Aberdeen, city of Cosmopolis, city of Hoquiam, city of Montesano, city of Oakville, Thurston County, and the town of Yokota. Those are the signatories of this agreement. I believe those are members of the Chehalis River Basin Flood Authority. With your concurrence, I will have this item on your June 6th agenda for you to formally approve the interlocal agreement.
Any questions on this?
I have a question for Commissioner Menzer. You made mention that you serve on one group that's represented by Lewis, Grays, and Thurston. So just the three of you, a commissioner from each county.
The flood authority, is like all the members he just mentioned, but then there's an executive committee of just the 3 counties.
The other reason I ask the question is, it seems like it would be pretty hard to do business with just 3 commissioners versus if you had 2 more people on there, then you could at least get something done. But
We don't really meet, we only meet on like an emergency basis.
okay. I'm just trying to make it.
We're like the strike force if a decision needs to be made between meetings, because the flood authority meets every other month. So sometimes it's just not enough time to get something decided.
Okay, good. No questions, no concerns.
And then are commissioners ready to move forward on this in 2 weeks?
Yeah, June 6th, I will bring in the
June
AIS.
6th.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I'm good at Commissioner Mitchell.
Okay, other commissioner items.
Mhm.
We have time.
You do have time.
When are we having our executive session?
The executive session, as soon as you're done with your commissioner's items. And I believe the attorneys are ready to have that discussion whenever you're ready.
Are you looking at me?
Yeah.
Did I mention that St. Pete's is closing their brain trauma center? So that's already been, I didn't know if Ty was here for that.
I don't think so.
Maybe not.
Anyway, I think it's worth knowing about that this is happening because it's gonna be an additional drain on our EMS resources that would normally maybe take someone to St. Pete's to be dealt with. And now it's gonna mean that they're gonna have to go north to somewhere up in King County, I believe. So it's gonna take that vehicle out of service for a longer period of time. And it's also detrimental to the patient because time is of the essence for those type of injuries. So just wanted to make sure that you're in the loop on that particular issue, I guess, because I can't recall. I think we're missing from that meeting.
I think I was, and think my assistant actually gave me a heads up on that.
Oh, okay.
But I did have a question. I mean, it was there.
And it kind of ties in with when we're working with St. Pete's, for an example. When we get our lobby stuff going, is there something we could do to do more to help our local citizens that are going to be adversely affected? It's really not going to be a big hit on our vehicles because we don't know how many. I've asked that question. Well, how many fall within that category that we need to have brain trauma problems? And well, they didn't really have that breakdown. But it's just going to be one more thing that's going to delay our service to the public. That's all.
I just,
And detrimental to the public.
I just can't even imagine what, I mean, just being outside of St. Pete's right now takes, you know, one of our EMT's medic units out of rotation. I can't imagine the transportation from here to wherever they need to go. And
It's going to just add to the problem.
I-5 traffic, like, I don't even know how that's going to.
Yep. Anyway,
really
so
impact
I
us.
don't have all the ins and outs of what the problem is, why they disbanded.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
Some of the doctors are really upset about it because they think it's quite a hit to our ability to serve our community. And we had a very substantial, well-recognized trauma unit up there. For whatever reason, they've chose to go elsewhere, the doctors involved. So I don't know why. And nobody was willing to say why, and it could be internal, it could, you know, they're voting with their feet somehow about something. I don't know the answer to that, but just that it's a problem. So, and we're gonna go around the horn here. Do you want me to keep going here?
I don't have anything on my list. So you keep going if you like.
animal control is continuing to be quite a problem. I've mentioned that they're gonna be going for, resources to build a new facility. I don't know what that's gonna entail, but I can tell you if the citizens that are dealing with animal control in rural America got a chance to vote on it, it isn't gonna go very far. So,
I think also in urban areas, I've been hearing
same kind of thing.
same kind of thing,
So
same
what
kind
are
of
we gonna do?
complaints.
I mean, how are we gonna address that? Are you working with the sheriff on that issue or
So,
with animal control?
so at least what I'm hearing is when the board really step up in terms of fully funding,
Which was a lot.
it was significantly a lot. I think in the tail end of that decision, which started back in 2022. I think with the hope, the calls, the sheriff's office was receiving will be diminished, and the involvement by the sheriff deputies related to any animal control will be diminished. I'm hearing that perhaps that's not the case. The sheriff's office continued to have significant calls. There seems to be a little bit of a somewhat disconnect. I don't know if that's the right word. When the sheriff's office call animal service for their support, seems to be a phone tree that leads to in a way to a voicemail, and sometimes those calls need to be be responded in a timely manner. So related as to when I'd like to remind the board when the board brought this significant additional investment to bring the level of service to the level they at least an unincorporated of the county they serve. I believe the board was on a trial basis. The additional investment, whether that brings, what the expected outcome of the additional investment. Great conversations with the sheriff. I believe he's going to be bringing a proposal during the biennial budget as to how we can probably can bring a couple of deputy positions. I'm not saying that you weigh in. This is just conversation. And how that can probably address the concerns, at least, or the impacts on the sheriff's office related to the number of phone calls related to animal control. How that is going to materialize on your budget conversations this fall is yet to be seen. Whether you want to curtail back the investment for animal services and invest on the sheriff's office, but it's always going to be the difficult decision, because the county cannot just step back from everything and investment to the animal service, because we cannot create a program, because we don't have the facilities, we don't have the operations to house animals within Thurston. So that creates a little bit of a nexus, at least for now, how we need to continue to partner with animal services. The level of partnership, that may be something the board may consider as you move into the discussions in the fall for the biennial budget. Did I answer your question, sir?
I don't know if it answers the question, but it maybe recognizes the problem, I think, more than anything else. That it's a major issue. What the solution is, I guess, is yet to be determined yet. But I hope somebody's communicating. I guess it's with Lacey, isn't it?
Yeah, so I encourage the sheriff to reach out to the executive director of animal services to start these conversations. I don't know if he has done that or schedule a meeting, because I think that will be the first step for the executive director to hear directly from the sheriff some of the concerns he has in his office.
Do they utilize TCOM for dispatch for all?
I think the TCOM goes to the sheriff's office. That's the route. Yeah.
So step one, from my perspective, is that the sheriff needs to have a cell phone number for the animal services officers, and they need to work collaboratively so that, you know, the sheriff should not be getting a phone tree and a voicemail when they need to communicate assistance, because they're basically working as an agent in a sense, you know, on a short-term basis for the animal services officers that we helped fund through our increased investment in that program. So that's step one. Now, if they're not, you know, if we're back to the same problem of animal services officers saying, well, that's not a, you know, you're not paying for that, or that's not our jurisdiction or whatever, that's a different issue. I'm not hearing that yet.
No,
I'm hearing
because
they're not just getting the, so if we solve step one and there's still a problem with step two, then we can figure out a solution to that. But I
Well-
do not think the solution is turning the sheriff's office into animal control department with officers, and, I mean, that does not seem to be a solution to me at all.
so on your item number 2, you eliminated that by increasing the funding to animal
Well,
service.
we tried to eliminate it, but it could still be that they get the runaround from the animal service officers, but I don't know. If they can't even reach them, they can't even get run around.
I mean, we shared those numbers. The thing about it is, last year I was the JASCOM rep, and I had these conversations with JASCOM and the executive director plenty of times, including that time when you came in front of the board and you were like, this is what I'm hearing. Me and Ramiro scheduled a meeting, like, I don't know how many times last year, to kind of keep passing on these concerns that we were still having. And I know staffing had a lot to do back then, but we passed those cell phone numbers on to the sheriff's office, right? Where we were told those were direct numbers to get a hold of us. And so they have those numbers, right? We've passed them on. And I do think that meeting with JASCOM and the sheriff, for them to meet is a good first step. But, you know, I'm just hearing just a multitude of complaints from different people around the community. And, you know, it's, I don't know how to address them, right? You know, I had this Saturday, you know, I got approached because apparently someone went in to adopt the cats. They live in the county. They wanted some barn cats for their farm, and they got told they couldn't adopt more than one. They were gonna adopt 2 is what I'm hearing, and they couldn't adopt more than one because, you know, they were like, oh, you live within the Olympia city limits. And after just arguing back and forth, the person had to go back home and kind of prove that, you know, bring documents that he wasn't in the Olympia city limits, that he was in the county. And then by the time he went back and had to bring all that paperwork in, you know, the cat that he wanted wasn't available anymore, had been adopted somewhere else. And so it was just like, I don't know what's going on with JASCOM. There's just a lot of frustration from the community and trust. I'll go back to, I feel like there's not that trust with the community right now. And I'm hearing this from groups that focuses a lot on animal rights here in Thurston County. I'm hearing just from a lot of different groups on this. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the disconnect is. I know that they've been struggling with the space. I know that they've been, you know, that the space is the plumbing is not adequate in the space, and I know that's been and staffing has been another thing, but I'm not sure if that's getting relayed out to the community. I'm not sure if they're communicating with, you know, the different jurisdictions, with our sheriff's office, but frustration just keeps going up. And
I mean, I'm sympathetic to the whole thing about the space and all that, but I'm less sympathetic about the whole field response, because that's been going on forever, and we've been
So
trying
maybe
every which way to fix it.
if the board is open to the idea, I can probably have the sheriff come and provide his perspective, as opposed for you to hear anecdotally what I'm hearing. I think it will be good to hear from the sheriffs directly, some of the
I think there'll be
concerns.
additional written communication coming in from the community along with that by then.
So
I mean,
I can organize that.
nobody really likes it when I suggest these meetings, but can we have the the animal service director and the sheriff here with the board. I'm sorry that we have to meet in a public meeting because of OPMA, but I don't like to play telephone back and forth. And I hear the sheriff's complaints, then I have to go to the animal services people and I have to hear their complaints. And then I have to, I mean, let's just sit in a room and hash it out. I'm sorry, the public, we're airing our dirty laundry in the public, but that's the Washington law.
Yeah.
We have to get business done. And playing telephone doesn't solve anything. If people have to say harsh words to each other, then that's how problems get solved. That's my suggestion, but.
I'm with you.
Is there a scope of work or performance metrics as part of the contribution or contract with them?
Not really. We just, as a board, said, well, let's try to fund it adequately like they were requesting, and let's see what happens if these problems go away. And
So
they didn't go away.
a little bit of history. Back in 2000, the budget issues, the board decided to cut maybe the contribution to JustCom. The result of that was, they reduced the level of service and response to unincorporated areas of the county. And since then has been, all this is not yet this. A lot of phone calls to the sheriff's office and everything else. And the response back then was the county needs to step up and fully fund the level of service. That really was in I believe in 2021, during the budget process, the board finally said, okay, so let's bring that back to what they were requesting, to the level of service.
Thinking it would have a corollary benefit on the sheriff's office capacity to do other things, because now they're not wasting their time where they're not really trained and qualified. So we thought it'd be a net positive for that investment.
So in 2022, at the beginning, maybe nothing really changed. And it was an understanding that they have issues in recruiting. So I think it was a little bit of, understanding to that point, but here we are almost 18 months in the making, and we continue to have the same issues. That goes back to, so the whole argument of the county has not stepped up in providing, funding to full level of service. That shouldn't be part of the discussion anymore. Because we have not seen, at least anecdotally, what I'm hearing is that we have not seen an increase in that level of service.
And it was a really tough for us because in the time that we were kind of wringing our hands about it, full funding went from 133,000 extra to another 475,000 extra, tripled. And we went ahead still, and it was the very last budget decision on a particular, where we were like, let's just do it and see how it works.
Absolutely. And I clearly remember those conversations because the board has had many conversations, and the last decision point that you made was they understand that they will relieve the sheriff's office from those phone calls. That was really the objective.
Meanwhile, JazzCom was kind of going back through its finances and trying to shore things up and make sure that they were stable. And so then costs increased quite a bit there. And right at the time we were considering restoring the funding. And so staffing issues, is that an issue at JazzCom? Are they fully staffed with their field officers, or?
No, it's been an issue all along. And then there was the COVID thing that got thrown into the mix too. It was just a combination, and they've never really come out of it.
So
and training, they're always in training.
That could be part of the issue.
Yeah. Let me work on a joint briefing.
Okay. Sounds like it'll be interesting.
Okay, any other commissioner items? Okay. I want to give, I know Commissioner Edwards already heard it, but I wanted to give Commissioner Menser the Board of Directors update. So we reviewed basically our bylaws for WASAC for the board of directors. And there was a lot of, we were split into small groups, basically, is how, which I thought was a great idea. And
Is King County?
yes,
present?
Eric, yeah, it was King County Council Member Sarah Perry, and then there was also a staff member for the council that does their legislative work, as well as Executive Constantine's legislative staff person as well. So they had 3 representatives there, and so Eric did a really good job in kind of splitting us all and all up. And so kind of what we heard, the big theme there was that King County feels like they've been paying too much and they don't have really the benefit that what they're paying for in the end. And so, but the whole situation really seems to be focused on LSC. Their issues and with voting seems to be focused more on LSC more than the whole of WASAC. We talked about having either, does a tiered approach, would that work for King County, where maybe counties over, you know, a certain population will have to pay like this and they'll be in this tier, and you know, counties from this population to this population would pay like another. And then we also talked about kind of like, I like to call it the gym membership approach, right? Where you come in and you kind of choose which, you know, which services you want from WASAC. And, you know, depending on what services, you know, you choose, and you would be paying kind of a specific price for that. So those were kind of ideas that were thrown around to kind of see it. There was discussion on allowing staff members to represent commissioners or executives on the LSC, and kind of the consensus was for executives having a staff person, that's okay, but for commissioners, since there's other commissioners as backups, then no. Then the whole voting thing came into of King County wants more representation in WASAC. That's kind of based on what they pay. And so the question that was asked of them is, you know, you're already having issues with attendance and having King County representatives show up. So what does it matter if you allow more seats? At the end of the day, if only one member shows up, you'll still get 1 vote. So then they were like, well, then we want weighted voting. And so that was something where a lot of the counties were uncomfortable with, because it's like, well, we don't know how that's going to work. And then another question that got asked is like, well, do you just want that for LSC, or do you want that for everything? Like board of directors and all the other committees, and they went kind of back and forth of just wanting it for LSC, but also wanting it for the board of directors. They just wanted, I guess, weighted voting. So after 3 full days of really hard discussions and trying to be amenable, I think it was really disheartening towards the end. Council member Perry's, you know, stood up and basically said that, you know, King County is, you know, she's like basically a done deal. The council is ready to withdraw, and, you know, they're pulling out. So it was just kind of a punch in the stomach, right, after 3 days of full work, and then coming towards the end and saying like, oh, well, we're pulling out anyways. It was just like, okay, well, so that was a little disheartening to hear. I know that conversations are still taking place on King County's participation and how much they really want to participate, if at all. And I think they're still trying to, like, you know, we're working as a collective, and so yeah, that was kind of the big thing. Another interesting thing I found out is though that, I was sitting with the current president of Wasac, and I asked her, if King County withdraws, where does that leave Wasac? Is it gonna kind of crumble? But what she said is that King County hasn't been paying their full dues for a while. And so really there wouldn't be that much of an impact, which that to me was surprising. I was like, they've been kind of really on this whole thing of, wanting this whole thing, but they're not current on their dues. They really haven't been. So I was really surprised on that. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so they haven't been paying their full dues for a while, and I'm looking at.
A while meaning how long?
Rob, do
Maybe,
you know?
maybe the past president of Wasac can provide a perspective.
It has been a historic practice where they have actually not paid until pretty much the end of the year, and it has rarely been the full amount. And obviously, the current formula is capped, where they pay, everyone does a per capita kind of assessment, but then theirs is capped at 25% of the overall dues. But yes, it's been historic. And I I'll keep my comments in check. But it's historic, and I think the bigger issues there, just philosophically from a policy standpoint, that is the association looking at sort of weighted voting is difficult, because having participated in a number of years at PSRC where it is weighted voting, where King County or the cities of King County wish to go, that's where it all goes. And so you don't have the voice as a smaller rural community in that bigger picture. The same thing would be the case for Wasac. When you look at a smaller rural counties, if there was weighted voting, King County would drive the agenda. And I think that's where there's potentially a disconnect. And that would be much more devastating, I think, to the organization and how it's functioned over the years.
But perhaps playing devil's advocate on what you just stated, some of the smaller rural county representations are the one they're on the table all the time.
True.
And they also tend to drive that agenda as well, Wasac. So I think there's always that perspective on the other side.
It gets back to what Commissioner Mejia said in terms of their participation. They're afforded the same access as everyone else, the ability to advocate for, different policy positions, but they haven't fully availed themselves of that. And a great point was in this year's legislative agenda, it was at last year's planning where Commissioner Jill Johnson from Island County advocated for and was able to get folks to support the work that was done around behavioral health that might not have gotten enough votes to be on the short list. So you can really, work with your colleagues around the table to make policy get on there. But if you don't do it.
So then there was another suggestion thrown in about, well, if LSCs were King County's biggest, frustration is coming from, then, does it service to like go into caucuses, right? Instead, and do we divide either on caucuses by region? Do we divide on caucuses by, urban, rural, by issues, and, and then kind of form our legislative agenda that way instead of coming, having these little subgroups right now, and then it all gets voted on, and then it that's where it gets really dwindled out into who has the majority of the votes. So that was like another suggestion thrown out of like, well, maybe we can do more of that caucus work so everyone feels that the legislative agenda is representing their interest. fairly across the board. So it was, yeah, so it was a long couple of days. I think there's a lot of work done, and I know that the conversations with King County are going to continue. And I know that they're going to be looking at different pay structures coming through to see kind of, you know, where everyone kind of fits. Another piece of the conversation was that, well, King County is not the only county that hasn't paid dues. There's other counties as well that haven't paid dues. And we were talking about, well, you know, do they still get to vote, right? For counties who are up to date and they're paying up, you know, how about the counties that are not? And so some of the conversation points were like, well, maybe just probation period. And if they're not really able to either get on a payment plan or do something, then at that point they would kind of lose that voting. So yeah, so just, I wanted to give, because you're probably gonna go in as this conversation continues forward, and I wanted you to have that kind of conversation piece as you move in.
Thank you. Yeah. I heard the whole presentation, you know, at the previous meeting, but definitely curious what you guys were able to accomplish at the planning session.
And I would imagine this will then be a focal point of the September board meeting, as that's usually the first review of the budget. So whatever's negotiated between
Yeah.
now and then will have a big impact.
Is that why Eric's leaving?
He's not until next.
Yeah, no,
next
I
year.
know, yeah, I know. but
March or May? March.
May of next year.
Next May, he's got, given us a year, yeah.
When is our next meeting? You know? Alcina, do you know?
So, and then,
It's usually quarterly.
so then the bylaws committee is going to kind of, they're gonna be kind of working on all of this, which that for whoever's in those.
Do you volunteer for
bylaws
the subcommittee,
Heck,
Commissioner?
I almost volunteered, Commissioner Menser.
Oh, man.
It took him a minute to.
I was just thinking, I mean, I don't have the answer. I mean, I just feel like I really hope there was a way to keep it together, because I think if I'm a legislator and you're coming to me and Wasak's coming to me, but I know that it's all the counties but King County, the impact of that recommendation on me is going to be minimal.
Especially if you're from King County.
Well, no matter where I'm from, because I know like the population, you know, driver. I mean, it really neuters our ability to speak powerfully for counties across the state to not have us all in there, top to bottom.
Right. Correct.
So I just, you know, whether it's compromising on the LSC vote, you know, like doing weighted there, but keeping everything else, you know, by county, you know, maybe that's a compromise worth making so that when we do go, we can provide all the services to the members and we can, you know, really still speak with that unified voice as an association.
You know, I think on the delegation of the vote may take Wasak a long ways with King County.
Delegation to
We do voting.
commissioner.
I think if you put the delegation, meaning non-necessarily elected official from King County can cast a vote.
Oh, okay.
I think
that's
that yeah,
represented.
that is, I think that is gonna take a long ways.
It's, yeah, so it was kind of a consensus for delegation for staff members. But for the executive, I think there was that concession of like, okay, it's only one person, but for the other ones, there was pretty consensus of like,
You
well.
need a backup commissioner
you
was
need
the
a-
idea.
Yeah, so it's like if someone can attend, you send your backup. So,
But if that's, I mean, I agree with Romero. I don't think that's the hill to die on. You know, they've got to represent millions of people.
Right.
And I understand there's 9 of them or whatever, but, you know, I mean, think all the committees we have in a 300,000 person county. And I can't even imagine how they coordinate all their business in a King County, so.
Because at the end of the day, it's one vote. And if that person who is being delegated the body to has the vote is representing whatever King County is. And I understand perhaps the pushback from the rest of the elected officials because you don't want to delegate that to somebody, but you don't have to. It's just an option.
So, yeah, more to come on that. I was gonna say something. I completely.
I would imagine the issue will transfer into the board itself, only because that's where a lot of the decisions are made for the strategic litigation and communications program. That's outside of LSC, so depending on what cases are pursued, that all goes through the board, and they may want to have that influence as well.
More to come.
More to come on that. Okay. Let's see if I have anything else.
I've got one other thing I'll mention.
Okay.
And I don't know why it is, but it took us a long time to recognize that fentanyl was a problem. And I heard on the news this morning that King County had over 1,000 deaths, I think, last year, I think it was, that were opioid related. But right at the end, they did say something to do with, they did mention that and another story maybe, that fentanyl was part of it. It's almost like they're wanting to deny that fentanyl is an issue. And why am I bringing that up? Because I think the truth matters to the public. And we better keep the public informed that fentanyl is a heck of a problem that we're dealing with. And the other thing, they referred to an assault that somebody had died. Well, then later on in the story said they were shot. Then they went on to about 4 other stories of shootings. So it's almost like they're trying to dampen down that we've got a problem in our society. And I don't understand why. So I thought I'd just mention it. It's frustrating to me to kind of, let's tell it the way it is and get on with dealing with it. Anyway.
Maybe related to that follow-up, on June 6th, I've been coordinated with the coroner to come and have a conversation with you. I think it was, some of the questions that you had, what is the latitude the coroner has to conduct autopsies and everything. So I had a good conversation with him, and he will be ready to answer any questions the board may have. That will be June 6th.
Okay, it's just getting worse out there, seems like. We're pretty fortunate here so far.
It was, I just said,
Yeah, when you're
it was interesting. I don't know. I feel like it's been interesting to see the transition of drugs, right? From meth labs to and I was talking with Patrick Soderberg yesterday, and he was just saying when he first started, he was just going to all different meth labs, right? That was a lot of his job, what his job entailed. And then, moving into the heroin phase, and now that's kind of been phased out, and fentanyl is the big thing now. But fentanyl, the thing about it, it's so deadly. And
scary.
And it's so cheap. I was talking with one of the medics, and they were telling me, before it would take $24 for heroin, just for, I'm not sure.
For a hit.
For a fix. Yeah, for a fix. And it would last a couple of hours. And now fentanyl is,
$4.
Yeah, $2 to $4. And, it lasts you a full day. So it's just, it's just become so widely available that it's just, I don't even know, how do you address that? It's just.
You can't hardly sell heroin anymore because of the difference in price, because they're getting fentanyl so darn cheap. So that's causing a real war between factioning groups that supply heroin versus fentanyl. They're even mad at each other. So I think that has something to do with all the gunfire going on.
Territorial, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I just want to highlight an item just for your information, and this related to the federal debt ceiling conversation. It may appear to be, far away from local governments, aside from not reaching a compromise and the impacts to the economy. I'm not here to highlight that. I'm here to highlight that if they don't reach a compromise, they will have a stop order to have any expenditures related to any federally funded programs and projects. So we have already started internal conversation as to what is it that we need to do, what are the federal funded programs, grants, and everything, because we cannot incur an expenditure because those will not be covered. That's what is different than the government shutdown. This is just stop expenditures, period, when using federal money. So we start having internal conversation as to how we can probably be prepared. And I just wanted to give you a heads up that we are working on that. Try to be proactive to a certain extent, but pertains to some of the funding that we receive from the federal government. But I think the failing to reach a compromise is going to have deep consequences to the economy, and that's a different picture.
Does this affect ARPA in any way? ARPA funds, does this affect ARPA funds?
So, but if they reach a compromise, and if that compromise include clawing back the ARPA funds, what it has not been obligated, that also is going to have another series of discussion that we need to have with the board.
I think we need to have this discussion on Friday. We're having a discussion on ARPA funding. I think we need to have a safe place, I don't know, like a.
Safe place to put the money under.
Yeah,
the wall.
Safe fail.
yeah, like, I don't know,
Fail
like,
safe.
like we need to have like a plan if it comes where money needs to be taken back, I would want to return as little as possible. I know that we've allocated for certain projects and that it's been working on, but if it comes down to it of like, we need to spend this money ASAP, I would want us to have at least a plan that staff can move forward with and not have to wait for, us to come together and come up with something and, but if it gets to that point that at least there's a consensus from the board of like, this is gonna be the emergency plan if it comes to that.
Yeah, that would be a good conversation this Friday.
And how does it fit with the delay in delivery of product? Because there's still a delay of product, so you buy something, you can't pay for it until it gets here, but they're asking for the money back, so it
So
could
the
cause a money
definition under the Treasury guidelines of obligated means we need to have a contract. That we need to have some sort of a document that binds those expenditures. But yeah. Anyway, so just to bring you up to speed there, we are working on behind the scenes on that.
Okay. Any other commissioner items? Anything that commissioners like to discuss at this time? Okay. 11:14, let's go ahead and go into executive session then, unless nope. Okay. So we're going to executive session for RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in official capacity is or is likely to become a party. LRA facilities. This will take approximately 20 minutes and commissioner's action may follow. We're live.
That makes a lot more sense.
We're live. We're live.
I didn't get how drills.
Okay, we're back from executive session. We were in executive session for RCW 42.30.110(1I) to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party, LRA facilities, and it is 11:47 and we are adjourned. Thank you. No action follows. Thank you.